and welcome back to the Dugout, this intro to Black Anarchism series, where we are diving into Black anarchism, some of the challenges, some of the innovations, and some of the people that have brought us through the ebbs and flow of our dynamic political thought, through the civil rights movement, to the Black Power movement, through the anti-colonial movements all around the world. We're here to fight for what's right. Whether you're new here or you're looking to deepen your understanding, this series is for you. So just sit back, tune in, let's get started.
Residents in Lincoln Heights are now arming themselves after an apparent neo-Nazi demonstration near the historically black community.
WCPO 9 News reporter Jay Shakur is live right now in Lincoln Heights. And Jay, what's the mood there tonight?
Hey, come on, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I got the wrong neighborhood. Guys, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. They ain't gonna come to y'all neighborhood and do that. It's not worth it, guys. Hey, it's not worth it. They gotta go.
This is going to be an episode for folks that are interested in unpacking Black responses to fascism, how Black people can be anti-fascist. And one of the questions I kind of want to dig into more in this episode is how, in a lot of ways, Black resistance to authoritarianism, fascism, etc., in a lot of leftist spaces is often romanticized. And I think it's interesting, and I think it's kind of underneath why I wanted to have this kind of discussion. But to just explain a little bit, in Ohio, there is a city known as Lincoln Heights. On February 7th, 2025, Evandale police said that they were first alerted of disturbances near I-75 overpass on Victory Way around 2:06 p.m. And then a local news station, WCPO, received several calls in the newsroom around that time reporting that there were armed men with flags showing swastikas on the sidewalk. Evansdale police stated that neo-Nazis did not apply for a permit, nor did they tell police ahead of time. The department states that it has no contact with the neo-Nazis until them arriving on scene that Friday. And this article also goes on to say that neither did the neo-Nazi demonstrators nor the residents protesting were arrested. Evandale police said that officers determined that while offensive, quotation marks, while offensive, the neo-Nazi demonstrators were not unlawful because they were located on the sidewalk and not blocking traffic. So these are some of the basics. Obviously, in different cities and places around the country, Nazis show up, fascists show up. I think it's always one of those interesting things where if it gets blown up in the media, then you have this kind of, I don't know, I think it becomes kind of parasocial. Like people are celebrating it, or they're kind of talking about it, and they're like debating about what institutions should or shouldn't have done. And I know even recently in Columbus, a number of Nazis showed up as well. What are some of your initial reactions when you heard that this happened? Do you tend to kind of feel the same, whether or not it's like in Ohio or somewhere else? Did this reaction like excite you more than other times? Or I guess, yeah, like what was your kind of reaction, just general reaction?
My first general reaction was, so this has happened about a month after Nazis walked through the Short North in Columbus. Had their own little interaction, which wasn't too fun. They ended up pepper spraying themselves when they were out having a police interaction. But it reminded me of that, of when they came, because when shit like this happens, I do always care when it is in Ohio. I'm always like, how close to it was I? And that's like the anti-fascist in me is like, we go where they go. If they were here, or if they're still here, where are they? Or what's the response? Do we need to organize, or do people in the community feel safe? What are the different levels of conversation? And I feel like one thing that was a big part of Columbus conversation was they popped up out of nowhere into Short North, did their little walk, and then ran away to German Village after calling somebody a nigger. They could not have pulled up to Linden, one of our historically black neighborhoods. Everyone, like all of my friends that weren't able to like respond or do anything, they're like, if they were in Linden, and I know where I was when the fascists showed up in Columbus. I was at Vance Auto Store buying myself some ammunition. And it was these black people at Vance that were telling me about the fascists downtown. Like, the people in Columbus who they want to actually threaten, they wouldn't go near. And what this event made me think of is they accidentally went near a black neighborhood, like right on the border between segregated communities like Evansdale, Lockdale, and Lincoln Heights. Like, and they fucked around and like they found out. Like, it proved like that sort of thesis in my head of like, you get a certain reaction because even in Columbus, yeah, they ran through the short north. It's kind of like our commerce district in Columbus, and they got yelled at. They got booed out. They didn't get booed out in Lincoln Heights.
Yeah, and to kind of explain like the movement of this group when they went to Lincoln Heights, they started off in the business district where they were like yelling the N-word at a business owner. As several elementary students were exiting their school, they were also there, and then they continued over to a bridge overpass. And once there, the neo-Nazis attached swastika symbols and other things to the fence. And then they used their platform to talk more while they were there at motorists who were driving across the bridge. And then around this time, a large crowd from the community gathered to confront the group. A small struggle ensued. I do think it's interesting, like, where these groups show up, because it's like with social media, as long as they get photographed, theoretically from their perspective, it's like, oh, this might be a win. Like, we got to be out here, and like people, I don't know. I don't really, it's kind of confusing. I'm like, what do they consider a win? Lynching someone or whatever? I don't know. I bet there's probably stages. It's fucked up. It really is like the fuck around and find out. And with the way that optics work, they can just show up and sow a certain kind of fear, but they don't actually want to confront a lot of the people that they probably think are like the bad blacks or whatever, you know what I mean? Or maybe some of them do, but like the groups that show up and do these like little marches in this way, like I just think it's interesting that the spectrum of the kinds of people that show up in those spaces, because like I'm sure some people are fucking cowards and they're willing to run, and other people are probably really fucking trigger happy and are willing to fucking murder someone like that. It's interesting, and your point is exactly right. Like, they will go near the edge of where black people might live, or it's like I don't know, I think about like the lone wolf kind of thing that will go in and try to get their fucked up alt-right points for shooting up like a grocery store or something. I think the group versus the individual kind of tactic of it is what's interesting. A lot of these neo-Nazis theoretically aren't expecting like people to come back up and show up in force, and I feel like, to your point, like that's the major like here in Columbus, it's like people, I don't know, I fucking hate when you're at like a rally or something and Nazis show up and people are like, Nazis go home. I'm like, they shouldn't have homes. Something about this incident that really made me want to do this episode is that recently police body cam footage from this has come out.
Get out of here! We'll get that. Just, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. Come back, bro. It ain't worth it. Back. It ain't worth it. Back, guys, back. Bro, it's not, bro, it ain't worth it, man. It is. It's not worth it. You know it is. It ain't worth it for these ignorant-ass people.
But you can see in the video that cops, as they always do, are doing things to help the fucking Nazis. They're trying to protect them from like the black folks that are showing up and being rightfully angry. And like the dialogue that's in there is like the cops are constantly trying to, it's just wild. Oh, cops want to de-escalate now, but they don't want to de-escalate when they're just facing black people in a fucking neighborhood that are angry because I don't. So it's just wild to me. The optics are wild, and it's like for a police officer to be like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. They think it's worth it all the time to fucking gun down people in their homes. I don't know. So it's just. And what's beautiful is that it's like all these old black folks and they're fucking pissed. And the one black guy in it is like, it is fucking worth it. Are you fucking kidding me?
It was a black cop telling this old head, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And he's like, you know it's worth it. And he's standing his ground. He's yelling, but he's not running up at the cop. He's just like, yes, it is. You know it's worth it. You know it's worth it. And while people are doing all this talking to the cops, the police line breaks. And people are able to grab and snatch that flag right out of the Nazis' fucking control. And then I believe the line forms up again. And then, like, after that little altercation, the police are like, you really got to go. Like, we can't. And then they choose to leave. And then they get escorted. They're talking to the cops about how they're going to get escorted to their cars. Because their cars and their Jeeps or whatever in other places. And then they burn the flag. They do a good old Nazi flag burning, and then they held a prayer circle.
It's so black. I love it. It's so black. It's yeah. And I just keep thinking of like the interviews I've read where like local people are like, thank God these, and I think they call themselves the Lincoln Heights protectors, like the folks that showed up and were armed. And I don't know. It's just, it makes me proud to know that this is an expression of blackness that, I don't know, it exists for a lot of different reasons. It exists because of like how we're redlined and segregated, but it exists because black people, I don't know. There's a lot of, I don't know, a lot of black people I think aren't fucking afraid, and that's fucking great. And I guess it really turns me to one of the main questions I have is, I think one of the reactions I've had to this that I kind of mentioned, it's like it's tied to some of the history. Like Lincoln Heights was created because the West End in Cincinnati was historically segregated, and there were corrupt landlords, and Lincoln Heights was established as a black community. I mean, it was first incorporated in 1946 at the same time that the Cincinnati Police Department bought a 30-acre firing range directly on the northern border of the neighborhood. And so even reading this, it's like Lincoln Heights also developed the first all African-American school district in Cincinnati. And so it just makes me think about literally the historical development of blackness and black communities that are trying to protect themselves and care for themselves alongside all of the segregation and white supremacy, etc. And how literally, like, when this town was incorporated, like Cincinnati Police Department was trying to establish itself institutionally nearby. And so the history of the relationship between blackness and the state and police, and how in this contemporary situation you can very clearly see the black folks are rightfully angry. These people are showing up to their neighborhood near their kids, yelling the N-word, yelling things that are fucked up. And the cops are just saying, well, they're on private property or they're on public property. You can't really do anything. And it's like the rules matter when like like, I don't know, eugenics and ethno-state, when white supremacy comes knocking, the way that the community in this situation is like, they're just completely negating the authority that the police are trying to claim. If you claim you're here to protect us, then fucking protect us. But if you're not, get the fuck out of the way. This is a very contemporary example of that, and how it's so historically like validated again and again and again, like they don't protect us. And then I think past that, like outside romanticism of these kinds of events, because I do feel proud when I see black people reacting in this way, but I also know that black people, like, I don't know, like some black churchgoers are like, well, just they only pray for them. And I'm like, come on, like people who are religious have guns or can pull up. They were able to bridge those together because they saw like this is happening when Trump is president, when more of these fucking Nazis are getting into office, when our economic system is handing itself over to AI and tech, the manosphere, and how, I don't know, it just makes me think about so much about how so many people are scared of what's going to happen, rightfully so, with this administration. But you can literally just look at these black people, and this community is living. They're probably people of all different economic statuses there, but there's probably a lot of poor people. They're probably just doing the basic work that black and poor people have to do to take care of each other. And then this, and so it just makes me think about, people are scared, but you could literally look at people that these Nazis literally want to target. Were they fucking scared? No. And so I think it just presents this very real kind of question about who is ready, why, and there's really a romanticism element that kind of pisses me off. If white people are sharing this, you should also be prepared to do the same thing, or worse.
And I feel like it has a lot to do with that background in community. Like Lincoln Heights, when doing some research for this, I want to shout out Sundown, Ohio, for this brief history of Lincoln Heights. They're a local archivist and Afro-Indigenous writer. Check out their Substack because they have a great history of Lincoln Heights, they have a great write-up on the history of Lincoln Heights that we're pulling from as well. And they talk about how this is a community that overtook what we normally consider to be state functions, education. And it's something that, I mean, we've had this conversation around, they had that warped decision around desegregation because they had their own schools, they had their own communities. In Lincoln Heights, they created Woodlawn School, which during segregation only had black students, and they also only hired black educators. Woodlawn was one of the only like black only public districts in Cincinnati, and one of the first, and it has like that same connection with Columbus, which we have a lot of private and alternative schools for black folks, for girls in this region. And as in doing some research, a lot of them come from like this time of segregation and needing to have these alternative schools, and black parents being like, well, we're not just gonna let our kids not get educated. We're gonna take this shit seriously. We know what this means. We didn't just travel this far up north the Mason-Dixon line for nothing. And I think that's part of that beauty of, maybe that's why we seem like we don't need to romanticize it, because we see it has a logical end to it. It has a logical beginning and it has a logical end. Even in Columbus, when they pulled through, they weren't welcome, but exactly when they pull up to a community where this sort of oppression was way more centralized, they didn't have a chance. And I don't want to say that in a way that this is gonna happen every time, but it is like one of those anti-fascist phrases of we go where they go. When they show up, people are gonna show up no matter what. People see the Nazi flag, someone's gonna be yelling at them. And I do think one thing I see in this is like that, optically from the outside, that diversity of tactic coming together of like, and not in organically and not in an organized way. Like you're saying, multiple people, the churchgoers probably pulled up, the old heads who were actually there when in the 90s, they're like, we should pray about it. They're providing emotional support in the back where people need to rest, and then people go up to the front and they go and do the yelling, and they go and break the line down so that we're able to actually attack the enemy. But I do think it is, in seeing and loving how the community has reacted, the public reaction from white people, like in the comments, are like, it is like, okay, what you have a what would John Brown sticker do, but you wouldn't do nothing like him. Like, I need to do John Brown on Thanksgiving.
And I really mentioned the romanticism thing because I don't know, I just think about 2020 and the fever dream of it all, and how especially the first days of the protests here were really fucking militant and really fucking antagonistic, and how so much of that was the niggas from the hood, and how that shaped what the rest of the movement became. It colored it. It became a flashpoint for so many people, like a moment where so many people were exposed to state violence. And I just think it's really interesting when people's light bulb moment is somehow usually attached to black resistance, and how sometimes that makes me angry, because I even think about like people that we all know and love, even comrades. Some of you didn't talk the same until 20, and granted, it's different for everyone. For black people, I judge it differently. I think we're allowed to come to our awakenings because we have to live. I just think it's so telling that the spectacle of our resistance and subjugation is often the entry point for people to become radicalized, and then they get to just go back to their lives, or whatever it kind of looks like. And yeah, I wonder what it would look like otherwise for like white people to show up in their own neighborhoods like this, or, and I'm not saying that they don't, but for there to be that visible practice and celebration of that reaction in a similar way. Who's next? Who's next?
I just want to pontificate and have everyone else pontificate on the fact that it is confirmed that this is the same hate group called Hate Club that was in Columbus that pulled up to Lincoln Heights, and they don't even pull locally. Like, one of the people that got doxxed from the Columbus event was from Philly, was from New Jersey. They ran off towards Louisville. Like, they went off to go disperse into their own little, like, they have 13 strong when they are collecting over 5 states. And they feel like they can be more emboldened now, and this is the kind of resistance that, even when they showed up in Columbus, they said, we never had resistance like that. They almost got in fights. Things were thrown. And now, and they had to be held accountable for their fucking beliefs. They ran away and they accidentally pepper sprayed themselves. And then they said, we've never had an interaction with the public so violent. And then they did this. Same group. They're learning and they're fucking around. And this will possibly only radicalize them more. And when you think about groups like this in the 80s, they were the ones going underground with the KKK, doing bombings, doing assassinations of doctors. They want to build up to that. And these little movements is them building their cadre. Don't think it's something small. Like, you can do a lot with a small group. And that's what they're building, is they're building their solidarity, they're building their cadre, they're they're having their steel tested.
They're practicing their anarchist calisthenics.
Exactly. They're training. And they think, with Trump in office, we're going to go harder. What happened in Columbus happened before Trump was in office, but he was confirmed. And now he's in here, and they think they can run that shit. And they think they can do it in Ohio, which is not going to fly. And that's the last thing we have to say.
Pay attention to what's happening locally. Learn about the anti-fascist organizations and groups in your community. And if there aren't any, start talking to people about how you'd want to react, what that response could or should look like, who do you want to notify, and how do you want to protect each other, whether that be physically in that space, whether that be how you show up and how you mask up and your identities, etc. But having these conversations is important, and I think it's kind of the foundation of how we begin to have like a deeper community care, because these things will continue to happen. But thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to support the podcast, find us on Patreon. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, which will be launching in March or launching in February, and find us online. And as my co-host would say, stay safe, stay dangerous, as I would say. Stay woke, get stoned. Talk to you later.
What's the name of this?
This name of this one is Nazi Punks Fuck Off.
After this episode,
Ready?
I'm going to play a bit of this documentary called The BALDIES that came out with Twin Cities PBS. It's all about skinhead culture and how it started as a multicultural, working class, and anti-racist movement that was then co-opted by white supremacy. And they specifically talk about the BALDIES, a skinhead POC anti-fascist group that came out of Minnesota. And it's a really amazing history. I'm going to put a link to the full documentary in the show notes because it is on YouTube. But enjoy this bit of it and really center yourself on how you can maybe punch a Nazi.
Hold it! Okay, just start again. Real fast. Nazi Punks Fuck Off, take 3.
This is ska.
Ska is the original skinhead music.
Well, ska's, for people who don't know, is basically what reggae came from.
Ska had come from Jamaica on a wave of immigration. And with the Caribbean music came the culture.
And we learned that it was black Jamaican immigrants bringing their style when they migrated to England. And the working class white kids in England and the black kids mixing their fashion taste together. And that was the birth of the original skinhead movement. Which for me was important because of the biracial roots of the movement, because I felt like I had a place in it.
We sort of associated with that because in our own little way, we were a mix. You know, we were kids from the north side and the south side and kids that were also black and native and Asian, and were interested in something that was rebellious and against the status quo, but also had a kind of life and a culture.
My other friends that weren't skinheads were really upset about me shaving my head. That it was like I was joining a cult or, a gang or something.
The skinhead thing was a whole different thing. It's like, instead of look at that freak, they're like, oh, look at that guy. He looks like he could hurt me.
You would see one and you're like, nah, I'm not f***ing with that dude. He looks like he's ready to go.
What appealed to me about skinhead was it was working class. I'm like, cool, I'm working class. There's my mom. She's at a waitress scene right there.
skinhead working class look included bomber jackets, Fred Perry's, braces, and the most iconic and expensive piece of gear, Doc Marten boots.
If you wanted to get a pair of DMs back then, you had to order them from Shelley Shoes, which meant you had to get an international money order.
And then you had to figure out the size difference because it's not the same.
3-4 months later, you got a package. You got a pair of 14-hole cherry reds. I mean, you look good, you know?
You know, skinheads wore suspenders, but we didn't want the thick lumberjack suspenders. The cool ones were the thin ones, right? Just a little bit wider than like fat shoelaces. And so Huey found some like tuxedo shop, you know, where people go to buy their wedding gear, and he found those thin suspenders. And so then we all got our thin suspenders, and then it was like, we had it. We had the look from head to toe. Like, we look cool. We look like we're in a band or something, but we're not. And then I started asking myself questions like, are we a gang? I was like, we don't look like disciples. We don't look like vice lords, but we're a family. We're a clique. What are the similarities between what we're doing and what is already out here?
And it was just like a natural progression of like, hey, we should start a crew.
The nature of all youth, you know, they want to belong. But more than wanting to belong, they want to belong to something that blows people's minds.
We love the Warriors. We love the movie The Wanderers.
What are you talking about, man? Nobody's tougher than the Baldies.
We'd be sitting in little Tim's basement and watching. He had a video player, right? And so we were watching The Wanderers, and the Baldies was Shaved Head Gang there, right?
Beat it. Nobody with the Baldies.
We heard about a Minneapolis street gang from back in the 60s, also called the Baldies. They were known for violently kicking their enemies.
And so we just took that name and part of the culture and we made it our own.
We didn't really have a lineage per se, but there was a 45 that a lot of us had called the Baldy Stomp, and we put it on every once in a while. I got a kick out of that.
I think in the beginning, without the music, it wasn't anything.
Just driving down the street, through the city streets, and that music playing and just feeling like, you know, together we're something.
But I remember that when I did start hanging out with the Baldies, like all the music was just right on time and just dynamite. To have people that right away knew exactly what I was talking about and might know more about those bands or those artists was really like cool. And that was also a big way that we got our politics.
The politics, it's like you don't realize it. You know, like you're singing along, you're listening to the music, and you don't really think, even to this day, sometimes I listen to the lyrics and I'm like, God, that was so insightful. It's all about unity and family and, you know, working class and being proud about that kind of stuff. And that really pulled me in.
So in a lot of ways, the politicization of our scene came through bands' lyrics.
This was working class music, and they called it Oi.
Yeah, Oi is rock and roll. It's, well, what they call Oi now is like street punk. It's like sub-genres in a sub-genre, you know?
And most of the lyrics are about people that are, you know, at the bottom of society, underdogs, people that are poor and in conflicts with the cops.
There's something that speaks to what being a working class kid is about, you know, and that's all the good and bad, I guess, that goes along with that.
There's so many great bands. The Business,
Cockney Rejects,
Angelic Upstarts,
The Oppressed,
Cro-Mags,
Stiff Little Fingers,
Agnostic Front,
The Exploited.
Oi Polloi.
A Nazi rally crying for a town. An anti-fascist came from all around. Clean the scum completely off the streets. Show the fascists can and will be beat.
It was the music that helped us understand these things more clearly. It was the voice of the artist and the message in the music that helped us connect the dots and go, that's that thing I've been feeling. They're talking about it in this song.
From the music we listened to, the lyrics, the camaraderie we had at the shows. And for 5 years, that was the center of my life.
As you know, if you watch us with any regularity, parents already have plenty to worry about. Now there's something different for parents to fear.
Right around that time was when all the information started coming out about Nazi skinheads in the media.
My guests today call themselves skinheads.
They are truly hate-filled. They are self-described racists, white supremacists, Nazi lovers.
Most of the people in the country that got familiar with what a skinhead was, got familiar with it through the media narrative, and they thought they were all Nazis. And here we are, we're like, we're not Nazis.
But there's 11 different factions of skins. You have scooter skins, you have gay skins, communist skins, socialist skins. There's no real one group that you can pin down and say, well, this is skinhead.
First of all, I like to say I'm a Jewish skinhead. Second of all, I like to know why you have only white power up there, and why don't you have non-racist skinheads up there?
Show's not about show's about racism.
I just heard what you said. You just said I don't sit with monkeys. You think because she's black, because I'm black, we're monkeys? Is that?
That's a proven fact.
That's a proven fact.
They promoted it. It's just so crazy. They denounce it, but it's kind of like one of those tabloid magazines, you know?
The thing I want to get off my mind is
I want to talk about this monkey stuff.
These skinheads.
That's what news media in this country really was when it came to that stuff. It just sensationalized it.
I think it's important that we get a sense of what the young skinheads are really about.
Hold it. Sit down.
The national news media has been paying a lot of attention to the increased activity of the Nazi Party. The state of Minnesota has never been mentioned in those reports, but a substantial number of community leaders here have voiced varying degrees of concern about the presence of organized racist elements in our area.
All of a sudden, someone had spray painted swastikas everywhere. And I was just like super pissed off. This is the 80s. Who's spray painting swastikas?
And when the Nazis came, we all looked at each other. We're like, no, we're not going to stand for this.
At First Avenue, there was a big show. It was the Cro-Mags, which was a hardcore band from New York City.
When you had specifically bands like the Cro-Mags, there was always going to be a big skinhead turnout at those concerts. Most skinheads wouldn't miss those shows.
I believe it was at the Cro-Mag show where there'd be these guys and everyone's like, oh, they're racist, they're white supremacists. And I remember seeing Paul Hollis and thinking that dude is scary.
Paul Hollis was pretty much a skinhead. I don't think anybody really knew much about like his politics or something. He was just a guy that was always around. And he was kind of a jerk, but so were a lot of other people.
Story goes is he just went to LA, met some Nazis out there, and came back with a different ideology.
And in our scene, Paul starts a group of kids, and they're called the White Knights. And they're his neo-Nazi skinhead crew.
And the Baldies and the White Knights were both there. And I remember that Paul Hollis had thrown down one of the Baldies in the pit, a little guy. And I remember Patty sticking his finger in Paul Hollis's eye and saying, "You're done, you're done."
The memories are kind of hazy, but I remember a huge fight.
And that was kind of the line being drawn that the Nazis weren't going to be tolerated anymore.